Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here.
Hello, pardon the interruption. I just wanted to say that some of this video is a little tiny bit out of focus. It's just one of the growing pains of adjusting to new equipment that you kind of constantly have to deal with when you produce videos. And the close-ups, the swatches, the tutorial, that's all in focus. It's just the talking parts that are a little bit blurry. It does get better towards the end. I just wanted to acknowledge that, apologize. I just don't have time to refilm this video and I wanted to get it out for you. And it's kind of annoying, but it's probably not enough to really ruin the video. You'll still get the information. If the swatches were blurry, I would refilm it. I truly apologize if that's annoying. I totally have it fixed now, and any future videos won't have this little out of focus issue, but yeah, sorry about that.
Hello, my beautiful friends. It's Amanda here, and today we're going to talk about a few new/new-ish. What is even new with Colourpop? We always have something that's right in the moment. So these are some pretty recent releases that I want to recap because we have seen quite a few very neutral palettes coming out over the past few weeks. And I just saw a sneak peek. It looks like we're about to get another one. I don't have that one yet. There's a new mega palette. I don't have it. So when it's here, I'll do a video for you. But for now, we're going to talk about these three palettes. We have two 9-pans of Quartz and Feelin Bubbly, and then a 10-pan. This one is Roaring Hearts. Now these are all part of larger collections. I asked on my Instagram stories if you would rather see a full catching up with Colourpop type of episode where I just went through and straight swatched everything from all of the collections I've missed lately, or if you wanted to see a more in-depth look at just the palettes with a bunch of comparisons. And obviously from this video you could tell that option number 2 won, so I'm not going to be swatching everything. This video would be 10 million years long, and I don't think any of us want that. Based on my watch time and my analytics, none of us want that. So we are really just going to take a close-up look at each one of these palettes, and I am going to do some comparisons. When it comes to neutral palettes, comparisons can get out of hand really quickly, so I just did 3 or 4 for each one of these palettes. I do think that's going to be effective enough for you to decide how you feel about these particular palettes. I could compare for days and days and days because there are 1,000,001 neutral palettes from every brand under the sun. So I tried to give you what I think are the best comparisons within the Colourpop line. And I think you're really going to be able to get a good idea about these palettes just based on those 3 or 4 comparisons each. All of these palettes are already available. You can use my affiliate code for any of these palettes that you decide to purchase. For a while there, codes weren't working when they were having their site-wide sales, and now we're back in business. So if you are interested in supporting the channel in this way, or if you just want to save 10% on your order, you can always use my affiliate code. It's just my first name, Amanda, and that will save you 10%. That is an affiliate code, so if you are not comfortable with me earning a commission from your sale, totally fine. There will be absolutely no hard feelings from me. I just want to throw the option out there. I do appreciate everybody who chooses to support the channel in that way. Now, let's talk about some palettes. I'm just going to go in chronological order. That's the easiest way for my brain to process these palettes. So we will be starting with the oldest release. It's really not that old. This is the Of Quartz palette, the only cool toned palette that we're going to be talking about today. So let's take a close-up look at the Of Quartz palette. This is priced at $14 US.
Right off the bat, I have to say, this is my favorite packaging that we're going to look at today. Something about it is so interesting. It's really complex. It has little sparkles. I just love, love, love the Of Quartz palette packaging. This is their heavy-duty cardboard packaging, and as you saw on the back, there are absolutely no eye safety warnings for this, or any of the palettes we're going to talk about today, actually. These 9-pan cardboard palettes do not have mirrors, And the Of Quartz palette has 4 mattes, 4 shimmers, and 1 matte with glitter, that black called Rock On at the bottom. And there are no pressed glitters in this palette or in any of the palettes we're going to talk about today. All of these palettes do have the larger pan size, the 26mm pans, the same size pans as the Limoncello palette. All 3 of these palettes have that larger pan size. So here is a comparison with Nude Mood, which is one of their more standard size or old sized 9-pan palettes, just so that you can get an idea of the size difference here.
Now that you've seen the palette close up, let's first take a look at just some finger and brush swatches of this palette by itself. As always, finger swatches on top, brush swatches below. I don't use primer, I don't use a dampened brush. I just want to give you a variety of swatch applications. So let's look at the Of Quartz palette swatches.
Lately, I've been enjoying showing you some really close-ups of these swatches as well, so that you can really see what this texture looks like on the skin and just get a better feel for not just the shades, but also the textures.
We will round up the Of Quartz palette segment with some comparisons. Like I said, I only did a handful for each palette, so we'll just take a look at a few comparisons and then we'll move on to our next palette.
So I have the old version of this palette. All the shades are still the same, but the front cover is different now because the name of the palette changed. So here's a comparison with the Blow and Smoke palette. Really taking a look at these shades 1-to-1, there's not really a ton of overlap here. Now the Baroque palette, which is part of their fall collection from last year, has, I think, a more similar color story. It has a little bit more softness to it, where Blow and Smoke is a little bit more harsh in that black, white, gray, monochromatic feel. Baroque has a similar softness, and the Stone Cold Fox palette is pretty much a perfect match for this one. If you have Stone Cold Fox, you legitimately already have all of these shades. This really is a more distilled version of the Stone Cold Fox palette in my mind. That's kind of how I'm viewing it.
Now we're going to move on to the Roaring Hearts palette. This is the 10-pan palette that we're talking about today, and this is also the one that I am wearing on my eyes, so I will show you just a quick little tutorial. I know it's nothing groundbreaking, it's a little shimmery, nudie, coppery eye, but it's always nice, at least for me, to see the shadows in action, see what they look like actually applied to the lid. So even though I am not a astounding makeup artist by any means, I do like to show these shadows in as many different ways as possible. That's why I do finger and brush swatches, that's why I do comparisons, that's why I do very basic tutorials. Just want to give you a lot of information about formula, performance, color, all that fun stuff. So first, let's take a close-up look at this Roaring Hearts palette. This one is priced at $16 US. Just in case you're wondering why this is $2 more expensive, even though it only has one more shadow, I believe it's because this palette is the only one that we're talking about today that also has a mirror. And a mirror in a palette does, just by virtue of existing, add a little bit more expense to that palette. So I think that's why this is priced at $16 comparatively. Anyway, let's look at this palette close up.
The Roaring Hearts collection has a very 1920s flapper prohibition type of vibe to it. We'll see that theme reflected in the packaging design as well as the shade names. Again, no eye safety warnings on this palette. This is a cardboard packaging as well, but this one does have a mirror included. And when we take a look at the shades inside, there are 6 mattes, 4 shimmers, no matte with glitter, no pressed glitter, and this seems like a pretty easy go-to basic type of neutral palette. I like that it's more matte heavy.
Now it's time for some Roaring Hearts swatches.
Same type of swatches here, finger swatches on top, brush swatches below, no primer, no dampened brush, nothing like that. And I want to point out how opaque and just silky smooth these mattes are with the brush swatches. Especially when you look up close, you can see these are just a phenomenal amount of coverage for a one dip into a matte brush swatch. I am incredibly impressed with the performance, actually, of all three of the palettes we're looking at.
And of course, just a few comparisons with this one. Honestly, I'm sure there are 100 more palettes sitting behind me on this shelf that would have been worth comparing, but I think you get the picture. Let's look at a couple of Roaring Hearts comparisons.
I did have a bit of a difficult time deciding which neutral palettes to compare with this Roaring Hearts, because I do think that eventually there would be a lot of overlap with a bunch of different palettes, and I just tried my best to pick the ones that I think are the most relevant comparisons. I don't know if you remember this old Double Entendre palette, but I think that Good as Gold and Double Entendre mixed together would be Roaring Hearts. I think there's just a little bit from each one of those palettes, and if they had a little palette baby, it would be Roaring Hearts. Now, of course, our best bet is going to be Bare Necessities, and as you can see from the comparisons, aside from that yellow matte shade, the kind of mustardy neutral shade, these are pretty darn close. Bare Necessities and Stone Cold Fox always are comparison heroes.
Before we move on from Roaring Hearts, I do want to show you just a quick little eye look with this one. That way I keep all of the information contained in each segment. So we'll do a quick tutorial with Roaring Hearts for this very basic but very go-to type of eye look. And then we'll move on to the Feelin Bubbly palette.
I'm doing such a basic eye look that I'm not really going to narrate the tutorial. I'm more just going to use this as an opportunity to give you some thoughts on formula and performance. First of all, the Party Proof Primer is definitely growing on me. Still not going to replace the Paint Pot in my mind, but it's a pretty good primer. I like it more than the Urban Decay Primer Potion, if that means anything to you. Now, when it comes to the palette's performance on the eye, I think that these larger pan palettes do tend to be a little bit better quality than the average Colourpop palette. Just in my opinion, the mattes seem so silky smooth, easy to blend. Now, Colourpop palettes in general already have a pretty high caliber of performance for me, but these just seem a little bit extra silky smooth, a little bit extra luxurious, and I'm all around very impressed with the performance. And I think that applies to all three of the palettes that we're talking about today. They just seem to have a nice shine on the shimmer shades, a nice blendability. They wear well, they have a nice opacity and a nice true to color pigmentation on the lid. And overall, I just think that these larger pan palettes are a step up from an already really good formula that I already really enjoy. So performance-wise, no complaints. Formula-wise, no complaints whatsoever.
Our last palette today is the most recent release. This one just came out. This is the Feelin Bubbly palette. Same size, shape, all the same sort of components as the Of Quartz palette. Also, like Of Quartz, this is priced at $14 US. So if you're feeling bubbly, let's dive in.
The Feelin Bubbly palette has a champagne theme. This is being touted as their New Year's collection, so that definitely makes sense. I find the packaging a little bit more basic. It's not quite as exciting to me. Maybe I wouldn't notice as much if I wasn't really putting it up here side by side with these palettes like Of Quartz and Roaring Hearts that have really complex, really cool graphic packaging. But I think that only stands to point out the kind of basicness of these shades too. 3 of the 4 shimmers look really, really similar in swatch. It's all very light. We're getting only very light and mid-tone shades, not a lot of depth.
By now, I'm sure you know the drill. We're going to look at some swatches and then comparisons with the Feelin Bubbly palette, and then I'll wrap up all my thoughts at the end.
I find the overall color scheme here to make sense with the theme of the palette, but I do wish there was a little bit more variety. These very champagne colored shimmers just end up looking the same on the eye, and there's not a bunch of depth to play with here. So I just think I'm gonna get not a ton of great eye looks out of this. I'm sure a lot of people will love it, but it's a little bland for me. This only stands out more when you see it compared with these other palettes. Something like Nude Mood, which I don't think of being an especially deep palette, is almost entirely darker than Feelin Bubbly, so maybe those could be good companion palettes. And Going Coconuts is a neutral palette I really like. I do think that just overall it is a true neutral palette. That's what I really like about it. But you can see here, this one's also a pretty light palette, and it's also almost entirely deeper than Feelin Bubbly. But Bare Necessities saves the day again with the most heroic comparisons. Literally almost the exact same shades in here. So the moral of this video is if you have Stone Cold Fox and Bare Necessities, you probably never need another neutral palette again in your life. Not that I will judge you for having too many neutral palettes. Obviously, you're in a safe space here. And surprisingly, pretty similar to Roaring Hearts, although Roaring Hearts does have some more depth, and I do find it overall to be a little bit more complex and interesting color scheme-wise, but I just thought I'd throw this one in here at the end.
It's a lot of neutral. I can see both sides of the arguments for and against these neutral palettes. A lot of people are sick of the neutrals. They, say nudie pop instead of Colourpop. I get it. Personally, I also would prefer a little bit more complex and a little bit more unique type of color schemes. If you watched my Ticket to Dreamland and On a Whimsy palette video, then you know that that's true. I liked those because they were a more out-of-the-box color scheme. And for me, personally, that is my preference. I do like a little bit of color, I like a little bit of excitement, and having stacks and stacks on neutral palettes all launching back to back, it's not really my preference. That's just me, and I totally understand that people get frustrated with that. On the other hand, I know that they release these for a reason. This is what a lot of people buy. It's the comfort zone for a lot of people. These are the types of palettes that get used up and need to be replaced quite a lot. And frankly, I'm sure that what they release is based on market research. I have no doubt that a massive company like Colourpop is putting thought into what they release. So certainly there is an audience for these. They keep dropping a lot of neutral palettes and people like them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Just because I don't need back-to-back-to-back neutrals doesn't mean that there's no place for them in the world. It certainly is an added layer of frustration when the comparisons are so similar. But I was thinking, especially with the Of Quartz palette, which personally I think is the best of the three. With this one, it's so similar to these shades in Stone Cold Fox, but I've heard a lot of people say that Stone Cold Fox and Bare Necessities are too big for them. They don't want to mess with that many shades. They don't want to store a palette that big. And honestly, this is a mini Stone Cold Fox. So for somebody who's been wanting cool tone neutrals that are more wearable than the Blow and Smoke palette, that are more of a day-to-day, more approachable, kind of softer cool tone neutral option, this is perfect. This is that. A lot of people have been waiting for this palette, and frankly, I think that from packaging to shade selection, performance, all around, for me, I think this is the most interesting. I understand this one the most of all three. So if I had to rank them, I'd say Of Quartz, Roaring Hearts is second for me, and then I would put Feelin Bubbly last. This isn't a bad formula by any means. It's just the one I understand the least. It's the least interesting packaging. Just for me personally, I think these two are just more my style, more aesthetically pleasing and artistically driven. This one is just a little bit lackluster, a little bit too light toned. It's just not really giving me much to love. It's not bad. I mean, if you see this and you're like, yes, those are my colors, I need this, I see zero things wrong with that. But for me personally, this is the least interesting, least useful of the three. So of Quartz, Roaring Hearts, then Feelin Bubbly last. Just one girl's opinion. Now's the time when I want to hear what you think about these palettes. Do you have a completely different experience, completely different perspective? Have you tried any of them? Are you adding any of these to your neutral palette wish list? I always love to hear what you think about things too. We do not have to agree on everything in order to be friends, and I really appreciate hearing everybody's different perspectives and experiences with products. So make sure you leave all your thoughts down in the comments below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye! Okay, do something. What? Okay. When it comes to neutral palaces, neutral palaces, I'd prefer a colorful palace, I think. Anyway. Beep beep boop boop beep bop. That didn't make sense. Let me rewind. Alright. Okay, alright. Woohoo. Maybe I should rephrase that. That was awkward. I definitely question whether or not I'm making sense a lot of the time while I'm filming. Sometimes I question it again when I'm editing. Okay, I'm fine. I just don't like this packaging nearly as much. Of Quartz and Roaring Hearts both have cuter packaging. Somebody designed this. I don't want to insult them. It's just not giving me as much texture. I mean, look at this one. This is a vibe. Like, look how much depth and layering and just, I don't know. This one just doesn't really do it for me. Maybe, I'm sure there are people that like this more. Anyway, I don't want to be insulting. Somebody made this, and I'm sure they worked really hard on it, and I respect their talents. I don't get to design palettes, so who am I to talk? Bubbly. A couple people have asked me to review the new Fresh Kiss lip lacquers. I'm wearing one right now. I've been testing them for a few days, and I am going to do a whole separate video with those, with lip swatches and my review of the lip lacquers. So make sure you stay tuned for that if you're curious about those. Because it is a new product, I do think it's worth its own video. So I'm going to be doing that soon. I'm actually going to film that later today. All right. All right. I felt like Sophia Nygaard when I said that. All right. I love her channel, by the way. Okay. I'm going to go. I hope you have a wonderful day. And if you're not having a wonderful day, I hope that tomorrow is better for you. And I just hope you know that you're special and you are truly a treasure. And I love your sweet little face. And I will see you soon. Okay. Bye.